This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories. And welcome to my recap and review of The Bad Batch, Season 2, Episode 7, The Clone Conspiracy, and Episode 8, Truth and Consequences. And these two, just from a quick look on Disney Plus, are the second longest arc in the show, with the first one being the premiere, which was 76 minutes. This one was approximately an hour. It was like a minute or two longer than the finale from the previous season. And this is honestly my favorite arc of the show and storyline so far. With honestly my favorite one being the first episode in it. And that's one that no members of the Bad Batch appear in at all. It's a really compelling story. So there are going to be spoilers. And some pretty big things happen in this. So let's go straight into it. At a clone bar on Coruscant, two of the clones discuss what they've done at Camino and how hard it is to live with it. That's something that you know was clearly wrong, and one of them says that they are threatening Rampart, telling him to reveal what actually happened there, or they will reveal it themselves. The other clone tells him that it's not a good idea, and Rampart is very powerful. This clone named Slip follows his friend outside of the bar where his friend is assassinated, and from this point, he is devastated by what has happened to him, but does manage to escape from the assassin, who begins to open fire on him. In the Imperial Senate, the debate once again begins to if the fact that they should or should not begin to conscript troopers into Imperial service. And with it, on one side are senators like Bail Organa and Rio Chuchi of Pantora. And Senator Chuchi is very strong into clone rights, saying that they need to protect the rights of these clones and give them some kind of pension for them to be able to live on after they serve as Imperial troops and are phased out by the Empire, since they did so much to protect them during the Clone Wars. Vice Admiral Rampart is against this, saying that the budget isn't big enough and doesn't really like clones, but doesn't make that public. With it, he is pushing greatly for this to happen, and it's one of his main goals in the Senate. And going to everyone, he believes that this is essential for security against the growing threats in the mid to outer rim, and is supported by many people inside of different groups like the Banking Clan. And after the meeting of the Senate, Rampart goes and meets with Grand Vizier Masamita, and the two discuss how he has to go and get this passed with the Senate, and they were given a lot of promises by Tarkin and others that he'll be able to do it. Rampart ensures that after he deals with Chuchi's demands, which he'll be able to find loopholes to get out of, that they will go and be able to get this law passed. And Amita doubts him, but tells him he still has time to do it. Senator Chuchi goes and meets with the clone troopers and tries to negotiate with them for them to be able to give her information for what they'll need when they go into retirement. The clones say that they don't want to retire, but she points out they eventually will and need some way out of it and something to live off of once they do, and their accelerated agent catches up with them, and the clones begin to discuss this and ultimately reach a good deal with the senator, who, before she leaves, is pulled over by the clone trooper Slip, and he begins to tell her the truth of what happened to Camino and how Rampart destroyed it. He then runs off since he doesn't trust anyone and wants to call for help, which he does. Senator Chuchi meets with Vice Admiral Rampart and begins to see many holes in his story and becoming suspicious of him. She asks her guards to look into Slip and to try and find him. While she does some investigating of her own, she is given a mysterious contact where she goes and meets up with Bail Organa, who begins to tell her of some of the suspicious things going on and that she should be careful, but gives her a few hints and says that they really do need someone to testify to what happened in Camino. And Rampart goes and contacts his assassin, telling them that they have to go and assassinate this clone and Senator Chuchi if she is involved with it. And this is getting very dangerous, that there's no way that could be traced back to him, and it's of vital importance. The assassin says it'll be done and logs off. Chuchi finds Slip and tries to convince him to go and join up with her and testify before the Senate. He does not think that she will be able to keep him alive long enough to do it, and tells her that she doesn't even need him because he has a backup of the order and of everything that happened on Rampart's Star Destroyer, and with it, he is shot down by the assassin. Senator Chuchi tries to escape with her security force, but they are slowly picked off as they are forced to hide inside of a warehouse on Coruscant. They make it inside, and the guard tries to hold the assassin off, but is quickly shot down. Chuchi climbs up and sees a figure coming out of the smoke and thinks that this is the assassin, but the man shoots the assassin with a stun bolt, knocking him out, and it is revealed that it is actually Captain Rex, who was coming to help his fellow clone, but got there too late. Hearing the blaster fire, he went in and was able to rescue Senator Chuchi, who he has served with before back in the Clone Wars. They learn the assassin was actually a clone who has no identifying marks on him and are very confused by it, and Rex thinks they need to interrogate him, so they bring him to the Martez sisters' garage, where he begins his interrogation, but the clone quickly refuses to tell them anything and bites a capsule that kills him instantly. And knowing that they need help, Rex goes to contact the Bad Batch. Back on Ornamental, Echo goes and talks with Omega and tells her how he's very grateful to the Bad Batch because he would still be a prisoner without them and doesn't really like being by himself or with his own thoughts after being held for so long by the Separatists. And with it, he goes over to the rest of the batch as they are contacted by Rex, who asks them to come to Coruscant, but there's not much he can tell them over a transmission, and gives them a way to get into the planet under Imperial security. Using this, they fly into Coruscant, going into the wells that lead to the lower levels. They land at the shop and begin to discuss what is going on. And after learning of everything and seeing the body of the clone that was sent to assassinate Chuchi, they decide that this is a mission that they have to go on and agree to help Rex. Omega is sent to be with Senator Chuchi and be an aide to her, as Rex and the rest of the members of the Bad Batch go to infiltrate Rampart's Venator Star Destroyer, which is currently being refitted, and to get the information from the backup logs, which were hidden there by Slip. Inside of the Senate, Chuchi begins to explain what a senator does to Omega, and after this, they also go and meet with Bail Organa, who gives them the idea that they also need a witness to help make this with credibility, and they go to the Kaminoan Senator Bertoni, who has been recently disgraced and pushed out of the spotlight when the Empire began to rise to power. Meeting with Senator Bertoni, They do have a hard time convincing her, but do manage to convince her to testify against Rampart, since he did go and destroy Camino. And with it, they have a small victory, but still need the evidence that the Bad Batch are going to get to be able to really get Rampart and expose what he's done. At the Venator shipyard, the Bad Batch do manage to infiltrate the shipyard using different pipes under the base, and with it, they do get inside and manage to hack their way in. With it, they do manage to infiltrate the Venator pretty easily using one of the cargo ships to hide under and slightly hijacking it. They get it close enough to the Venator for them to fall off, rolled over, and be able to sneak in. They make it up to the bridge with relatively no problems, but they do see a problem when they have to turn the ship on to be able to access the backup logs, and that will surely alert the clone troopers there. And it does. The clone troopers quickly swarm the bridge as the Bad Batch get into a firefight with them, as Tech and Echo go to download the information from the databanks. And while doing it, they also access the turrets of the ship, using it to shoot down the V-Wing starfighters that are flying in to give cover to the troopers, managing to fight off the clones and make it to the escape pods after they have managed to escape out and get the data they need. They launch the escape pods and land close to where they came in. With it, they go and sneak back down and head through the tunnels once again so they could pass off the information to get to the senators. Rampart goes and pushes once again for the Imperial military to be created, as Senator Chuchi pushes back, bringing Senator Bertoni to go and tell how there has been a lot of money diverted from Camino, and that it was Rampart who was behind it. And Rampart denies it, and Chuchi says that an investigation needs to be made. And then, to stall for time, she accuses him of destroying Camino, but with no proof. Rampart pushes back, and many of the other senators want her to be kicked out of the Senate. But Omega was able to get the information from the other members of the Bad Batch and passes it on to Senator Organa, who comes out and says he has new information and passes it off to Senator Chuchi. And she explains what it is and how this is information taken from Rampart's Star Destroyer, and it is of him giving the order and the destruction of Camino. The footage is played to the shock of everyone, and basically on cue, the Emperor rises up from his position and begins to address the Imperial Senate. And Rampart is arrested for his crimes against Camino. Rampart says he was only following orders, but everyone ignores him as Palpatine begins his speech. And Palpatine says that he is very grateful to Senator Chuchi for exposing the corruption in his empire. But with it, he says that this just proves that they need an Imperial Stormtrooper Corps to replace the clone troopers who were a little too complicit in this, following these orders without question and destroying their home. And with it, this shocks everyone and devastates people like Chuchi and Organa, who were very opposed to this being created. And after this, the Bad Batch and Senator Chuchi and Rex meet up. They begin to discuss how Palpatine had this planned all along, and he wanted them to go and steal stuff from Rampart's Star Destroyer and be able to expose him. He knew this was going to happen and used this opportunity to push his stormtroopers to be created, and they realize that they have truly doomed the fate of all clones. Senator Chuchi says she will continue to fight for the clones in the Senate, but realizes that things are pretty bad now, and they're almost certainly going to be getting worse. the Bad Batch prepare to leave, but to Omega's shock, they all go to Echo and begin to wish him good luck and that they're going to miss him. Omega is very confused, and Echo turns to her and begins to explain that he can't take these injustices going on any longer, and he's going to stay with Rex to help and protect clone troopers. Omega is shocked by this and says that she'll miss him, but Echo tells her that he will be back soon and she needs to keep up with her training. He goes to stay with Rex as he watches the Bad Batch leave. And as I said before, this was an honestly amazing arc. It was a really well told story, and it is great with the conspiracy aspect, but also just looking at how crazy things got. That Palpatine cameo would have been even cooler if it wasn't shown in the trailer, and with that, it also showed the Camino footage, which meant we knew it was going to be exposed. And that was one of the things I wish was kept out of the trailer, because the Gungi thing last week was at least understandable, but that thing with Palpatine, it was kind of a moment where I knew how this was going to end up, at least partially, but it was also awesome to see how Palpatine just showed his genius once again and was able to use his opportunity to still get what he wanted. And it shows just how manipulative and just how powerful he is. It is really interesting to see that, and it was just so much fun to see just how crazy things got. It was such a interesting storyline being told, and honestly, I feel like it's gonna be cool to see some side stories with Rex and Echo going together and fighting against the Empire, because I feel like that's what they're basically promising with Echo leaving to join up with Rex. And that was honestly a really cool thing to see. Kind of surprising, although I kind of should have seen it coming because of that moment that he had with Omega earlier in the episode, which typically means there's going to be some kind of change going on. Although it typically means death, it did kind of foreshadow this moment where he was going to leave, and so I was really surprised by that, but I think it was really well done. And I had a lot of fun just watching this. It was really crazy to see just how dark things are getting in. This is how the Stormtrooper Corps was created, and it was created out of the best intentions trying to actually stop it. But Palpatine, being the master manipulator that he is, managed to turn around a thing that was meant to actually stop the creation of the Stormtroopers, and instead used it as a reason to why they needed to be created. It was such a brilliant move, although I think there was a few plot holes in this. I think Ryo Chuchi did finish being the senator by the time of episode 3, although she could have been reinstated after. And well, there are just so many other great stuff in it. Rampart being thrown under the bus is completely predictable, and it was interesting how he said that he was following orders, and that's exactly what the clones were doing. I don't think that he's actually going to have anything happen to him. I think he's going to be publicly said he's in jail or something, but secretly be in charge of this program, which we'll see the continuation of with the clones who have been turned into brainwashed assassins. And I think this is what happens to clones who are trying to disobey the Empire. And it could even be what happened to Cody, or he'll be being experimented on. But with it, I think it's really unlikely that Cody is making out of this season. But yeah, honestly, this was such a great episode, and from what I heard, is supposed to be the turning point of the season. This is what some people who have already watched it because they were in the press or had special connections to Disney and were on their good side at least, and we're big enough creators to be able to get a chance to see it. And obviously, I have not watched it yet. Well, the rest of the season yet, but from what I heard, is this is the turning point, and it's really interesting, and I can see why, because this is where the creation of the Stormtroopers will fully come into play, but we'll also see some more missions against the Empire, and we'll get to see Rex in a more prominent role, and things really changing with the Empire becoming more secure in its power. But yeah, honestly, this was just an incredible episode. I had so much fun watching it, and I really do want to know what you think. And yeah, honestly, that's really all I have to say. I'm gonna let you know I will have Legion Superheroes review it tomorrow unless there is some kind of problem because I did do it for an in-store pickup somewhere, and occasionally there is a problem with that, but it's not too common, so hopefully it didn't happen. And if not, then I'm gonna have to wait a few days for it to come in through something like Amazon, although it's being sold in 4K almost everywhere, and I don't have a 4K player or TV, so it'll be kind of a waste of money, so I'm gonna have to order it from one of the few places that are selling it on Blu-ray. But yeah, honestly, I do want to give it a minimum because amazing episode. I cannot wait to see where this goes. I think we're about the halfway point of the season. And yeah, honestly, just let me know what you think. Please let me know in the comments. And I'll see you on the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.